Joining me now is Naftali Bennett. He is the head of the right-wing Yamina party, currently a member of Israel's parliament known as the Knesset, and he recently served as Israel's defense minister. Mr. Bennett, thank you so much for your time this evening. I appreciate it. We started, as we were talking there, about the diplomatic efforts. We heard this morning that President Biden conveyed to Prime Minister Netanyahu that he expects to see a significant de-escalation today, setting up a potential ceasefire. If that does in fact happen, when that does happen, what would Israel have achieved over the last 10 days?
Well, our goal is to disarm Hamas and sort of prevent them from being able to lob at us thousands of rockets in the future. Over the past 10 days, they've shot roughly 3,000 rockets, without any specific target, just on Israeli cities, Israeli homes and towns. And this is obviously unacceptable. So our goal is for them not to be able to do that again.
As you know very well, sir, Israel has already been in several conflicts with Hamas over the years. Each time it has claimed, as you just said, that you want to prevent Hamas having the capabilities of launching thousands of rockets into Israel. Since 2008, since the first war that I covered, Operation Cast Lead, Hamas's rockets, they're becoming more deadly by your own estimate. They're reaching deeper into Israel. Has Israel's military strategy here against Hamas over these years been effective to achieve the objective?
We might need to rethink it. We have a real problem with a failed state and a terror state whose explicit goal is to annihilate Israel. So it's sort of a problem. They're not out to seek some sort of peace. From the outset, they decided their goal is to destroy Israel. And we might need to rethink our strategy vis-a-vis Hamas.
What might that entail, a rethinking of a strategy?
Well, imagine that you had Al-Qaeda on the American border. So this method of rounds might not be the right method. We might have to think of other options. I don't want to discuss them right now.
Okay, as you very well know as well, there are people in Israel who believe the prime minister is using this crisis to shore up political support. I don't want to talk about internal Israeli politics for a moment, but I do want to read for you a quote from Thomas Friedman in the New York Times. He said, both Bibi, that is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Hamas have kept power by inspiring and riding waves of hostility to the other. They turn to this tactic anytime they are in political trouble. Do you believe there is any truth in that?
No, I think the fundamental problem here is that Hamas wants to destroy us. I mean, in their constitution, right, in their very constitution, I'll just read out one short paragraph. Article 7 of Hamas's constitution, then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, "Oh, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill me." That's their constitution. It talks about killing the Jews. They have to decide to change their goal, to start taking care of their own future, their own children, and then there will be peace.
I know that Israel's security and diplomatic immunity, as you well know, has been a cornerstone of United States foreign policy for decades. Yesterday, I interviewed the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, who said that he actually wants to review and reevaluate U.S. weapons sales to Israel. We had members of Congress today say they want to block that weapons sale. What do you say to American taxpayers who are increasingly concerned about and don't want the United States to bankroll what some human rights organizations in Israel and internationally are calling war crimes and apartheid being committed by Israel?
Well, I'm not in the position to tell American decision makers what to do. That's American policy. What I will say regarding the latter part of your question, that's a blatant lie. Israel's the only true democracy in this region. We're fighting very deadly, very lethal organizations that don't seek peace. I'm talking about Hezbollah, ISIS, Hamas, Iranian militias, that their sole goal is to destroy us, the very democratic country in this region. So the question is, do you want to be on the side of those who are fighting for freedom, for liberty, for good, or on the side of the bad guys who just want to destroy all of that?
Yeah, and you singled out Hamas, but I want to ask you about what's also happening in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. And those organizations, as you are saying, it's a lie. President Biden has reaffirmed the United States' commitment towards a two-state solution. You have said the idea of establishing a Palestinian state has reached, and I quote, a dead end. If you don't believe in a two-state solution or full equal rights for Palestinians living under Israeli occupation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, what should happen to Palestinians under your rule?
We're talking about an autonomy. Right now, there is a Palestinian state in Gaza. We handed over all of Gaza to the Palestinians, and what happened is they turned it into a terror state, not unlike the Taliban. So clearly, that is not the right method. Having said that, there are 2 million Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria, and we have to work out a way of living side by side in peace and in dignity, while at the same time not allowing them to kill us.
Yeah, and Mr. Bennett, I lived in Gaza for 2 years as a reporter there, and I covered disengagement back in 2005. You withdrew settlements, you withdrew the troops, but you kept a crippling blockade, which international organizations, the United Nations, have said devastated Gaza's economy. You controlled the territorial waters, you controlled the airspace, you controlled the entry points in and out of Gaza, along with Egypt. So there is, from the international community's perspective, criticism that Gaza has never had the chance to economically develop.
No, you're turning things upside down, because indeed we don't allow now Gaza to import missiles, explosives, because we don't want to die. You know, I've got 4 kids in Ra'anana. We spent the week in the shelter. From the very moment we left Gaza, they shot at us rockets. And then, indeed, we said we're not going to let them import that. And, you know, they've spent billions of dollars of donations in building up weaponry and all these rockets, while they could have spent it on schools, on parks, on hospitals. So their leadership is terrible. And I think, you know, your questions should be focused on why are they doing that? Why aren't they seeking peace?
Is it safe to say that you see the two-state solution, or at least the Oslo process, as defunct and no longer a viable option?
It's true to say that we need to look at creative solutions. You know, I came to age in the high-tech arena, and as a startup entrepreneur. What I learned there is when you try something again and again, it doesn't work. You have to try creative and novel solutions. I think there's a lot of good things that we can do.
Can you be specific about one or two of them? Can you be specific about one or two of them?
Fundamental, yeah, economy, quality of life, get people jobs. I believe in people. I believe in dialogue. I believe in actual life versus building another terror state like the one that we unfortunately allowed to develop down in Gaza.
And just to be clear, would those, in what your scenario that you're describing, would Palestinians have full equal rights?
They have already rights to vote. They have equal rights in their parliament. They can vote. They decided to postpone the elections. There's just one thing that we can't allow them, the right to kill us. That's one right that we're not going to provide them.
I think everyone can agree on that. Former Israeli Defense Minister Naftali Bennett, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.